program. So, and we're very happy to answer anybody's questions once that solicitation opens. We're here and available to answer people's questions about how to apply, what's eligible, what they need to have a successful application. The second program that will be opening at the same time is a very focused program. It's our zero emission truck pilot project for Portside. And that's a specific project that we built through their SERP to incentivize zero emission trucks that operate in Portside. We will be taking applications for that program at the same time. It's an incentive to provide up to $250,000 a truck, or 90% of the cost of those zero emission trucks. And there are some specific requirements on that, in that those trucks have to make at least 52 trips a year to that Portside community. And so we'll be working on that program as well. The difference with that program, just so folks know, is we heard from a lot of the community, the truck owners, that particularly for small fleets, the requirement to scrap the old truck was a huge barrier to their participating in and making that transition to zero emission equipment. So we've taken that requirement out of this pilot project. You do not have to scrap your old diesel truck to take advantage of those incentives. And so we hope that people will be interested, and we will see if we can encourage folks to do that. I did see a question in the chat from Nicholas. Can you repeat the incentive amount for the Portside truck? It's up to $250,000 a truck, or up to 90% of the cost of that zero emission truck. So it's a sizable incentive, and we hope that that will attract some folks, and we'll be able to see some zero emission trucks operating in that community. So those are my updates. I'm happy to answer any questions real quick, and I'll leave my contact information in the chat so that if people have more detailed questions, I'd be happy to follow up with them and see what I can do to help out.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Want to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin, who is a senior chemist, and will be giving an update about the metals monitoring that they've been doing.
Thanks, Monique. Yeah, so just a very brief update. Just for a little bit of background, airborne metals are an example of hazardous air pollutants, or HAPs. These are known to cause cancer and other serious health problems, including reproductive and developmental issues. Metals are typically released from certain industrial and commercial sources, including but not limited to auto repair, junkyards, smelters, furnaces, and crucial to the portside communities, shipyards as well. We just recently finalized our contract with a third-party lab to perform metals analysis. So we've deployed our samplers. We actually historically sampled for metals at our Sherman Elementary School site, and before that at our Perkins Elementary School site in the Portside area. And so we're going to continue sampling there, as well as our sites at Chicano Park and the Caltrans Boston site. We plan to deploy another sampler to the Marine Terminal site as well in the near future. So we collect samples on filters every 6 days, which are then sent to the contract lab for analysis. And then they, once a quarter, send us the full data report for those 3 months. So we anticipate presenting our data to the steering committee probably late spring or early summer, once we're able to get that data report back, analyze it, organize it, etc. Airborne metals have certain health exposure standards, so we will review those, as well as collaborate with state and local health agencies, so that we can kind of assess what the ambient levels are and the impact that they can have health-wise on the community. And in addition, the data that we collect will of course be used to assess our emissions reduction strategies. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the SERP later. So of course, all monitoring data, the biggest use for it is assessing how our emissions reduction strategies are working. So really excited to get our metals program going. And I see Rebecca Simpson's on the call as well, and she's our lead chemist for that program as well. So be looking for her or me in the future to do a more detailed presentation. But in the meantime, you can send me an email at kevin.bradley@sdapct.org if you have more questions. Thanks, Monique.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Yeah, definitely looking forward to learning more about that monitoring once you start to collect that data. I'm going to turn it over to Yanju Chen from the California Air Resources Board for a brief update as well.
Thank you, Monique. Hello, everyone. I'm Yanju Chen from CARB here. I just want to continuously provide an update on our San Ysidro pilot monitoring project. As we mentioned previously, we have two parts for the fixed monitoring and the mobile monitoring. So for the fixed monitoring, based on the suggestions and comments we heard from the CSE members, and also our site tour we conducted in October, we were able to narrow down our list to 8 to 9 sites to potentially deploy the PM 2.5 monitors. And we'll be deploying our black carbon monitors. We only have 2 units, so we'll be deploying black carbon monitors at 2 sites. And for mobile monitoring, the CARB team was in the community in November. We conducted 5 days of mobile monitoring, and we collected a good amount of data. And we're now in the process of analyzing the data. And it sounds like promising, and we'll be share. Hopefully, we can share the results with the group here soon. And also in terms of like fixed monitoring, I also would like to open up a request here to see whether we could seek for 1 to 3 volunteers, and potentially if there are any members interested in hosting our monitors, please feel free to let me know. Monique, if you don't mind, I'll just quickly share my screen. Sorry, it seems like I cannot share my screen because I thought that would be easier just to kind of like introduce a requirement to host those 2 types of monitors, kind of help move the presentation a little bit faster.
Yeah. Go ahead and try again.
Yeah, I can see it now. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's popping up there.
So it shows the first part is clarity nodes, which are used to measure PM 2.5, and it's pretty generally a very small unit, measured by 9 by 8 by 6, and it weighs around like 4 pounds, and it doesn't require power because it's solar powered, and it can be placed next to a pole or next to the wall or on the railing, and it only requires minimal maintenance. And the other one, what I mentioned, that we do have 2 black carbon monitors called Emery 350. It's a little bit bigger, so it measures 16 by 20 by 10, and also a little bit heavier, weighs like 35 pounds. It does require power, so around like less than 1 kilowatts per hour per day. And it needs to be installed on the roof or on a certain platform, for example, like a table, or like a barbecue stand or something like that. And it does require some maintenance every a couple of weeks. So here are just some brief information about these 2 types of monitors. And here is information for me, Yanju Chen, and also my colleague Annie Flores. She also presented in our in-person CSE meeting in October. So if you have interest or if you have any questions, feel free to let us know, and we can also share the slide information with Monique, so Monique, you could share with the CSE member in the future. And also, I would mention that once you have an interest, we can have our monitoring team come to evaluate whether the location would be suitable or work well for the monitoring location, and we can get back to you. So that's all my update. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for me to being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yanju. I just want to emphasize, the monitors that CARB will be setting out don't really take that much space. And so if anyone is interested in hosting a site, please do reach out and let us know. We'd be happy to connect you to the folks at CARB for those monitoring sites. And in Kevin's presentation, just to clarify, they're looking at also doing metals monitoring in San Isidro as well during around the same timeline as well. And so hopefully we'll be able to have that data in the early spring as well for us to be able to ground a lot of the information or a lot of the discussions that we are having as well. And then Yanju, would you mind putting the contact information in the chat box as well? So just in case if folks want to reach out to you all directly, they're able to do that tonight as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Thank you so much, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. Great. I think that's all the general updates we currently have right now. I want to go ahead and actually turn it over to Domingo to talk about this, the CSC member stipends. And Domingo.
Sorry, I apologize. I wanted to click my unmute button and my screen disappeared. I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just wanted to touch base on the stipend. So just to I'll take a step back and just to clarify, the CSC member stipends are only for community residents that are official members of this steering committee that have submitted their applications to be part of the steering committee. As you are all aware, we adopted a charter earlier last year or by mid of last year, and in that charter basically states, you know, the community members that are participating as active members of the CSC qualified to receive stipends for their time commitment to this committee. And I just wanted to let all of you know, we have been tracking attendance, so we have that historical data, and as soon as we are able to start releasing the payments, we will do that retroactively to the time that the particular member started attending the meetings. So we have been working with our contracting department, which is still tied to the County of San Diego, in trying to expand a contract that we currently have with a firm that would be able to allow us to distribute the stipends. We currently, that contract is being reviewed by our lawyer just to make sure that we are able to use that same firm that we already have established, so that we can hopefully start distributing stipends as soon as next month. And again, it would be looking at retroactively as well, just to make sure that we cover all the past meetings that folks have already attended. We will, hopefully we will have that in place by the time we meet again in February. We're crossing our fingers that everything goes smoothly. If that's not the case, we are still looking at what are the quickest alternatives to make sure that we start distributing the stipends. We are aware of the time that everybody's, putting into not just attending the meetings, but really helping us inform and shape this program. And we really appreciate all of your contributions. But it is your time and it's very valuable. So we really appreciate it. We're mindful of that. And we just wanted to let you know that we are working towards getting you compensated for it. In the meantime, again, thank you for your engagement, your continued interest, and for representing your community in this space. And so we look forward to continue working with you.
Thanks so much, Domingo. I just want to pause there and see if folks have any questions or comments regarding kind of the update regarding stipends. So just to reiterate what Domingo shared, like we definitely appreciate your patience on it, and we acknowledge that it's been far too long in the process, and we are though doing the work behind the scenes with procurement and contracting to ensure that we can move that process forward. So, you know, we will definitely keep you updated, and we're working to hopefully have some resolution by the next time we meet as well. Yeah. All right. So if there aren't any questions or comments on that, move on to the next item on the agenda. And I do see a comment before I do that, I do see a comment in the chat box by Mariano, specifically about airborne heavy metals. Mariano, I'd love to connect you one-on-one with Kevin and Rebecca, and perhaps you all can chat more about that particular process. I'm not too familiar with that, but I'm sure they'd love to connect with you and chat more about that, and they can reach out to you directly in the chat. So with that, before we get into the more of the active participation strategy discussion today, I wanted to take some time to first thank folks for connecting with me, if you have already, over December or January. I had sent out an email to folks to schedule some time to meet with me. One, just as an opportunity for us to get to know each other better, but also an opportunity for me to hear from you all what your experience has been part of this, you know, process so far, and moving forward, how you'd like this process to be shaped this upcoming year, and for your feedback really to serve as a guideline for us and how we do our work together in this space with you all. So I wanted to share briefly some high-level things that I heard from you all, and share how we're going to try to intentionally integrate the feedback into the work moving forward as well. I'm going to put in the chat box first, before I do that, a document here where if you haven't had an opportunity to connect with me yet, you know, via Zoom for a one-on-one conversation, I do still have some dates and times on that sheet. You can click on that. Feel free to sign up. I'll add some more dates and times in February, just in case you don't see anything that meets your schedule. If there isn't anything here that meets your schedule, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I can accommodate your schedule the best I can. So I want to make sure that anyone who does want to meet one-on-one and engage in a conversation, I just want you to know that my door is open to do that. So again, that link is there. There are some dates and times, but if those dates and times don't work, feel free to reach out to me personally, and we'll make it happen. But so far, what I've heard from folks is really around that people really appreciate the data that's being shared, but really the importance of making it meaningful and accessible. Meaning, how is it, you know, not just sharing the monitoring data, but is sharing how is this going to impact health, right? What does this mean for me and my family? So making sure that data is meaningful, accessible, but it's also actionable. What can we do with the data? Then what? So we're really going to take that to heart when we do share data. Keep those things in mind as we're sharing that data as well. Another thing we heard too is, you know, ensuring that there's opportunities for continual feedback, and that there isn't just all of a sudden a plan to share with folks, but that there is an ongoing conversation and co-development of the plan itself. And we hope to do that with these conversations as well. People really wanting to understand, right? The sources of air pollution, not just the emission numbers, right? But really, what are the sources of that pollution? So we hope to be able to do that as well when we engage in these conversations. Also, community members, some folks shared a real interest in wanting to have opportunities to interpret the data themselves, or even opportunities to learn how these monitoring the monitoring equipment works, and even maybe even getting youth involved in that conversation. So we are exploring that right now as an option. And if that is something that you're particularly interested in terms of learning how these monitors work, or even actually going out in the field, or have youth that you think might be interested in that, please let us know, because we could, if there's enough interest, we can have a subcommittee of folks who could learn more of the technical side of things and get involved in that way as well. Also, and I'm not going to go through every point, but just some of the high level points as well. We also heard the importance of involving folks in Tijuana intentionally in this conversation, because it is a binational airshed as well. And so thinking creatively of how to include community members in Tijuana as well as part of these conversation, and ensure that things that even happen on the US side aren't negatively impacting folks on the Mexican side of the border as well. One, and I'm failing at this moment, but one is ensuring that the majority of time for these conversations or these times together, that it's not presentation based, meaning that the majority of time is time when we're all strategizing together, instead of you all just receiving a presentation. And so that's something that we really want to be mindful of moving forward. Being clear with the timelines and when actions will be taken, and ensuring that, being clear about what their pollution control district can do, what the California Air Resources Board can do, but also what other public agencies can do as well, and who has a responsibility and the capacity or the ability to do certain actions. So having that clarity, and we hope to, as we start to develop these strategies together, start to identify the appropriate agencies or entities, right? And their responsibilities and their role in this as well. As I mentioned, there's other points as well that people brought up, but really folks shared that they want the space to be action oriented, less like being presented at, but more action oriented, more conversational. And if there are in-person people, some people expressed that there might be an interest for in-person meetings. If there's in-person meetings, making sure it's an opportunity to build relationships, that they be purposeful, and again, they're action oriented and not things that we could have done, in an online space as well. I will be sharing my notes in both English and Spanish, like towards the end of the month, when I have an opportunity to connect with hopefully more of you. And again, these are things in which what you all are sharing with us that we hope to really help guide the way in which, as staff members of the Air District, do our work in this space with you all as well. So we really appreciate you all for sharing your experiences, but also your ideas and how this space should be. With that, I just want to pause and take some time to hear from folks who maybe participated in the process or who haven't yet, but just to hear kind of your thoughts in terms of, what I've shared. Did that reflect some of the conversation we had, or are there other things that are missing that would be really important to bring into the space today? How about with the show of hands or emojis? Who had a chance to connect with me one-on-one? You could put a hand up or emoji or something in the chat box. Awesome. Thanks, Shelby, Nicolas, Jenny, Leslie, Zach. Awesome. And I know that there's a Maritza. I remember our conversation, a really beautiful conversation. Great. Yeah, so I hope to connect with more of you in the coming weeks as well. Certainly understand, right? Elsa, yes, I certainly understand that, with schedules and all, it could be difficult, but just want to let you know my door is open for sure. Cool. Again, feel free to add your name to the schedule if you haven't already. If something doesn't work for you, let me know and we'll make arrangements as well. Great. So now it's time for the fun stuff. Are you all ready? Okay. I saw Maritza rolling up her sleeves, so we're gonna get serious here. All right. So the past few conversations, yeah, Domingo, did you have a question or? I saw
No,
a hand up.
yeah, sorry, wrong button. I was able to just find I had minimized my screen by accident. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. So the last few conversations we were specifically having conversations to help inform the community air monitoring program, the CAMP, or a plan, the CAMP, right? What's going to be monitored? How is it going to be monitored? Why is it important to monitor? Excuse me. Those were the conversations that we were having. In addition to the CAMP, excuse me. Hold on, my little one is coming here to the meeting. Hi, mijo. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. One second. This is the joys of doing it from home. Okay, sorry. So today we're going to focus primarily on the elements for the Community Air Protection Program. And so I circled a couple of things that our conversation's going to, excuse me, our conversation's going to inform. One is the community profile, really meaning like, what are the things that the community is experiencing, and the things in which the community is prioritizing as well. But not just stop there, because you've already identified a number of things that are filling out that community profile. The other thing is around community strategies. And this is where I hope that our conversation is really focused today, is essentially what are some of the strategies to lower air pollution emissions and minimize community exposure to some of the things that you've all identified already. So I've been able to write down a list so far of about 10 community priorities that I've heard in these conversations. One is around border wait times, dust from border patrol operations, the Tijuana River, the sewage odor from the river. Also, people concerned about air quality impacts to students and staff, particularly from Wilson Elementary and San Isidro High School. Amazon warehouses, Otay Mesa heavy duty crossing, parks near freeways and busy traffic corridors, transportation and traffic circulation, particularly focusing on Dairy Mart Road, Calle Primera, Willow Road, Camino de la Plaza, and then East San Isidro Boulevard. And then we also heard about concerns from about new development near freeways and warehouses. And then lastly, we heard about freight trains and rail yards being a concern as well. But before we engage in kind of the strategy conversation, I'd love to hear from folks if there's any other core community priorities or areas of concern that folks would like to add to this list as well. Yeah, Stan.
Hey, Monique, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
So maybe add the new border crossing that is gonna be built, since it hasn't been built. So maybe giving input now would be a better choice than trying to fix it after it has been built.
That's a really, really good point. Thanks for sharing that, Stan. Alejandro.
I'm not sure if it was mentioned with the parks, but I think also schools and senior centers as well, close to main highways and freeways.
So schools and senior centers near highways, yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. Irma,
Sí, buenas tardes. Yo quería saber de, ahora que estuvo lloviendo mucho, aquí en San Isidro se hace una laguna grandísima. Entonces eso pues también causa malos olores y eso que está haciendo frío y acaba de suceder. ¿Cómo podría hablarle a la ciudad para ver si podían limpiar todo el drenaje porque se hace una laguna que aunque pase uno caminando con cuidado, se moja uno más arriba del tobillo, casi hasta la pantorrilla? Y yo pienso que también ese es un problema, ¿verdad? Todas las tuberías y ahorita con estas lluvias, toda la agua que está cayendo, que se viene con todo y la basura. Entonces, yo pienso que todo eso sí es un problema en todo San Isidro. Gracias. Esto.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Irma, for sharing that. I know Shelby from the city is here. And I'm wondering, Shelby, would you be able to put in the chat box for Irma the best contact information of who she should probably be connecting with at the city in terms of the like water standing issues? If you could do that, that'd be much appreciated. I know I'm putting you kind of on the spot to do that, but what we could do too is we can also follow up with Shelby if it's too much to ask to put in the chat box, so we can follow up with you, Irma, and like who the right person in the city is to connect you with regarding the standing water issue. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's go back to Alejandro.
My bad, I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think, I don't see it up here, but I got a message saying that Magdalena wanted to chat as well. Let's see. Trying to see if they can come from the attendees and come to the panelists. I invited them here. Right, we're going to give them an opportunity to do that. Stan, was there something else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, so all the standards that we have for vehicles, to be able to be on the road, there's no standards in Mexico, and all of the vehicles that come through the border, especially waiting at the border crossing, as I said, there's no control, so they're just spewing everything. So I don't know if there's any future plans, for vehicles that are actually going into the country to be able to be screened or have some kind of same emission standards as we have here in California, since we all have to do it.
Yeah. I think, and then maybe Domingo, if he's still on, he could probably speak more to this, but I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, because I know that there are standards that when trucks do cross over to the US side, they are inspected by the Highway Patrol, I believe. But I do want to put write that note down, because I think that's something that we should be following up on specifically. So thanks for bringing that up, Stan.
Yeah,
Correct.
and I think that's cargo trucks, but not like personal vehicles, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're saying
Yeah.
personal vehicles
Yeah,
specifically.
specific for personal vehicles. Yeah.
Got it. All right, just taking notes here. Are there any other kind of gaps on issues or priorities for folks that we should add to this current growing list? Jenny.
Hi, thank you. I think a gap is knowing what exact chemicals are in the air in San Isidro because of the proximity to Tijuana, where they may use industrial chemicals or emit them from stacks that are not typically allowed to be emitted in San Diego, or other routes of exposure to chemicals that could get into the air. Because I think that this community has a potential to have unusual exposures to chemicals in air and also chemicals that stick onto particles in the air.
Thanks for bringing that up because that is certainly a gap here. So I heard, chemicals from industrial facilities. Like what are those chemicals? Where are they emitting? Whether it be on the U.S. side of the border or the Mexican side of the border, the industrial facilities and what the impact of that is. I see Magdalena.
Sí, muchas gracias por darme la palabra. No sé qué tanto puedo participar aquí, yo no soy miembro de este comité, pero quería mencionar sobre la nueva garita, es algo que en el lado mexicano nos preocupa muchísimo y creo que vale la pena que hagan una presentación en este grupo de cuáles van a ser los impactos al aire que se prevén en esta nueva garita. Como ustedes saben, se sumaría a lo que hay ahora, se sumaría más tráfico con una segunda garita. ¿Por qué? Porque las expectativas de este proyecto es empezar a promover más maquila en México. La materia prima y los productos terminados vuelven a cruzar esa frontera. Entonces, va a haber un gran aumento de actividad económica, de actividad de cruces, sobre todo en camiones. Y yo creo que los que diseñaron o están trabajando en este proyecto deben de tener una MIA, o sea, un estudio de manifiesto ambiental, un manifiesto de impacto ambiental y que nos puede decir cuánto más tráfico esperamos. Pero el costo, las ganancias, nada más pensando en la inversión y las ganancias a las que esperan sacar de esta garita, porque toda es comercial, es preocupante. Nos da idea de que va a ser un impacto al aire muy grande. Entonces me gustaría que si este equipo puede traer a los que diseñaron el proyecto y que expliquen eso. Es muy importante, es muy necesario.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. And Stan, was that also what you were referencing as well, in terms of, you talked about the new border crossing, but that new
A la
checkpoint?
Garita Octay 2.
Yeah.
Sobre la
that
Garita
was
Octay
it.
2.
There's two. Okay. Yeah, and I really appreciate this conversation because it's also being proactive, right? It's not there yet, but there are plans to do it. And so having a better understanding of those impacts is important. We have Zach from Sandag. And so what I want to do is I want to connect with Zach after this meeting in the next couple of weeks to see if Sandag has more information that they could perhaps share with this group so that this group is more well informed to engage in a discussion around that particular issue. So thank you for bringing that up as well. So what I'd like to do is we have a lot of different topic areas that we could potentially focus and discuss tonight. I think we probably would only have time to really dive deep into maybe 2, max 3 of these things. So I wanted to hear from folks, what folks would be maybe like most interested in discussing this evening. And not to say that means that the other things won't be discussed or strategized. They will be, but we're going to have to take these in bites. And also there could be an opportunity as well. Each one of these things could be its own subcommittee if there's enough interest, where folks are kind of, working together and coming up with those strategies and targets together in subcommittees. Today, we're doing it as a big group, but I wanted to start the conversation on maybe 2 or 3 that are maybe the things that folks are the most interested in discussing this evening. So with that, what I'd like to do, I have these little stars here as well. Let me see if I can move them. Whoops, let me go back. Okay, so I wanted to see folks who are interested, who would say like the one thing that would be like of greatest priority to discuss this evening would be kind of the schools and being near freeways, the senior centers, parks being near freeways. How many of you would want to make that like a top priority this evening? I see one.
Buenas tardes, soy Wendy Barrientos. Para mí sí es muy importante las escuelas. Sinceramente todo es una prioridad, pero si se tienen que tomar la decisión de ver dónde van a estar los monitores del aire, creo que es en las escuelas porque ahí están los niños y si los niños se enferman, pues ellos tienen que tener un buen aire que esté respirando. Gracias.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wendy. Do folks want to prioritize Amazon warehouses tonight as well? Again, it doesn't mean that we won't prioritize this at all, but just for a conversation tonight. See one there. Okay. The Tijuana River, the sewage odor. Just looking for like a show of hands. Okay. See a lot of interest there. The trucks coming across the border for tonight.
Do you mean idling vehicles?
Specifically the cargo trucks.
So heavy duty trucks?
Heavy duty trucks. Mm-hmm. Okay. The port of entry, like the idling vehicles tonight.
So you mean San Isidro this time?
Yep, San Isidro. Border Patrol operations. Okay. The new developments by the 905 freeway. Oops. All right. And then the freight trains. Okay. All right. So, based upon kind of this rough voting, I think if we can talk about the Tijuana River and the odor, and then talk about also the heavy duty vehicles coming in. We could maybe start the conversation there tonight. And so what I'd like to do I'm going to go ahead and get out of this for a second. Stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to do my best to take notes, but this is also being recorded so I can go back and gather the information. So let's take on first the heavy duty trucks conversation. I'd love to hear from folks, and feel free to provide your experiences and seeing what that's been like for you and your communities, but also for folks to maybe provide some ideas. I want people to think big. Right now, it's a place for ideas and for folks to share what ifs and endless possibilities, but like ideas for what conversations need to be have. Who needs to be in the room having those conversations in order to ensure that air pollution emissions are lowered, and that the community's exposure to that is also minimized as well in that process. Love to hear from folks. Maybe folks want to start first off with maybe a personal story of why this is important for them. Magdalena, do you have your hand up?
Más bien creo que no la había bajado, disculpa.
Okay. No problem. For those of you who put your hand up for this one, I think I saw a few people. Let's see who I saw. Nicholas, I think I saw your hand up for this one. Tell me more why this was really important for you.
Forgive me, Monique. Can you remind me that I raised my hand for several?
No worries. So right now we're focusing on the heavy duty trucks coming across the border.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge priority given that, the amount of product that's moving across our border on a daily basis is huge. And, I think as our communities continue to grow and expand eastward, where a lot of these trucks are kind of going in and out of over in Otay Mesa, it's important to kind of, I guess, get ahead of an issue. I mean, I think a lot of community members are going to be directly exposed as the truck route is kind of going out on the 905 freeway. A lot of our community members are going to be exposed directly to a lot of that diesel pollution. So I think that's why I raised my hand on that issue specifically.
So I heard a few interesting things. So one is concern about like exposure as these trucks are traveling on the 905. I'd love to hear from folks in terms of ideas, in terms of either maybe thinking about like how to minimize exposure. What are some ideas that folks have, or strategies that folks like to see as part of this, of the SERP moving forward? Or maybe you've seen in other communities as well. Jenny.
Hi, I like to see solutions that don't require the community members to have to protect themselves. It'd be better if the trucks were not polluting in the first place. But I feel like I don't know enough about the plans of the truck patterns. Like, it's very complicated, and I'm trying to find out, and I know there's people that know more than me, but maybe we could find out as a group. I know some trucks, pass through Tijuana, exposing people, as Magdalena knows well. And then there's these trucks that kind of do short haul drayage trucks, make little loops. And then there's trucks that take it further. And I was really struck by, I had a student looking at if there's an effect of COVID on air pollution at the San Ysidro border. And she noticed that even though the crossing volume obviously reduced at San Ysidro when it was restricted and everything, the truck volume actually didn't even go down during COVID. It went up, if anything. So just echo what Nicholas Paul said about, this huge volume coming over the border. And I just don't really know enough about the planned route for the trucks, because they come over, they could go up the 125, they could go up the 805, but I see a lot going over all the way to the 5. And I just don't know what their plans are in the future. And that would really maybe help protect the community.
Yeah, so I heard 2 key things that I think I want to make sure that is centered in the SERP that you all are co-developing. One key thing is not putting the burden of emission exposure to mitigate that on the community, but really like tackling it on the front end in terms of where the emissions are coming from. And then the second thing I heard is that, and this is something we need to do our research on as well. So I'm glad that folks at Sandag and the city are here at this table today, because I think part of the missing puzzle that you're saying, Jenny, is that we don't know specifically those particular like truck patterns and where they're going, how many, what's the frequency and all of that, in order for us to better understand kind of the magnitude of this particular issue that is a community concern, is what I'm hearing. Alejandro, I think I saw your hand open or raised for a second. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think again, I don't think I have, like Jenny said, the expertise on specifically the trucks that are crossing Otay. But I do vaguely remember not too long ago, maybe a couple of years back, hearing someone from the air pollution district say that they could drastically cut the number of trucks that are over like the emissions like regulations if they increase inspecting. So I think that's one thing that could be done sooner rather than later, as well as the transition of trucks from diesel fuel to other alternative electrification or others that pollute less. Also, I remember seeing a study where you could decrease the amount of pollution by of the idling trucks by doing faster inspections. I know that we've talked about the amount of power that even the state has for the border crossing, right? So I don't know how doable that is, but I think it's definitely something that personally I would like to pursue and tackle.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And so really looking into the possibility of increasing inspections as a way to, prevent from, these dirtier vehicles, right, from coming in as there is this transition. Jenny, were you going to add something to your previous comment?
Sorry, I just wanted to say, in terms of the truck patterns, I also want to know what the future plans are, I guess, not just the current plans, but also just like, what are projections, just like Alejandro brought up about percentages of cleaner trucks and things like that. I feel like I don't have a sense of, is this something that's just going to stay the same for a long time, or is it going to improve quickly, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm trying my best to get this down, but there's definitely some gaps in information that we need. Nicholas.
Sorry, if I may, I apologize, Nicholas. I just want to interject quickly to clarify a point that Alejandro mentioned just before we move on from that, because I think I heard a couple of things and I'm a little bit confused. Alejandro, you mentioned increasing inspections, but then you also spoke about inspection time. So do
inspection.
You mean...
Oh, sorry.
No. I was just gonna ask. Do you mean it's the time that it takes a truck to go through customs? Is that what you're?
So the first inspection that I was talking about, I remember it was when they were talking about it on the port side and the trucks crossing the border got mentioned. They the APCD, I don't remember who or when exactly, but I remember it's inspection of like smog of those diesel trucks. If they were breaking, the regulations. And so yeah, that's separate from the inspection time. I did use the same the same word, so maybe that might have been confusing. But the second inspection time was talking about specifically the border customs. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification. Thanks, Domingo. Nicolas.
I think Magdalena had her hand up for a while before I did. I'd hate to take her place.
Yeah. Magdalena.
Muy bien, gracias. Pues yo le he dado seguimiento a una serie de notas sobre la garita Otay. Está prevista abrir Otay 2. Está previsto, o la intención es que se abra este mismo año. El motivo de esto es que quieren cerrar muchas de las operaciones en China, traerlas, lo que la maquila hacía en China, traerla a la frontera, sobre todo aquí a Tijuana, y eso te da una magnitud de lo que va a pasar. La otra, porque el puerto en periodo del COVID funcionó a la mitad, porque muchos estaban enfermos, entonces quieren evitar estas pérdidas por todo ese transporte tan largo a través de los puertos, ¿no? Entonces, lo que sí ha pasado ya es que han abierto como nuevos carriles en Otay, la actual, y sí están haciendo nuevas conexiones de freeway, pero eso no es todo. La otra cosa que me preocupa, alguna vez estuve en una de las reuniones de este grupo de trabajo para lo de la garita Otay 2, y lo que me comentaron es que pues nadie ahí, ninguno de los miembros tenía una visión o una perspectiva de justicia ambiental. Entonces todo esto está hecho cabildeado para las corporaciones, para el desarrollo económico. Y entonces creo que es este grupo es quien realmente puede pedir cuentas de este proyecto, ver las predicciones de tráfico, predicciones de emisiones, y pedirles que esto, ver qué es lo más preocupante, qué es lo más grave, y hacer cambios, precisamente como decía Mónica, antes de que esto esté sucediendo. Porque la predicción es que va a ser muy alto. Actualmente la garita de Otay es un camión tras otro, varios que están cruzando. Y yo puedo hablar del lado mexicano más que de este lado. Del lado mexicano hay largas líneas de camiones esperando su cruce. Entonces, tenemos que ver si todos los errores de garita Otay tienen que ser corregidos en Otay 2, ¿sí? No, para mí me parece una negligencia no hacer eso. Después de la experiencia de todo el problema que está causando Otay ahorita, que no lo corrijan en Otay 2, ¿no? Entonces, la otra es las zonas de amortiguamiento. En el lado mexicano no existe. Hay una densidad poblacional alrededor de la garita que es muy triste, muy grave, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, perdón por hablar tanto y no ser en el comité. Pero tengo que disculparme, perdón, gracias.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think what you shared is really, really important. And it made me think of a question I'd like to ask Zach from Sandag, and also Shelby from the city of San Diego, based upon kind of the gaps in the information that we have, wanting to know what the current truck patterns are, or truck routes are, what the current and also projected kind of patterns are, and also emissions as well. Who else, and this is a question for Zach and Shelby, but who else maybe should be at this table having this conversation to provide that information? Would it just be primarily the city and Sandag, or are there any other partners we'd also need to have at this table to be able to have that grounding information and also engage in those conversations around the current issues, but also future issues as well, as it relates to this?
I could jump in first, but in terms of other stakeholders and players and actors in this kind of binational mobility space, I definitely think Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation, definitely has to be part of the list of folks who are speaking on this. Specifically within SANDAG, there's others besides myself who work on transportation modeling that I think would be really good to hear from. These are the people who kind of do the forecasting and estimating of what are the traffic volumes going to be, what are the predictions, that sort of thing. So that's another voice. And I'd say just, I guess, generally, I think it'd be a good idea to maybe bring an item to a future agenda just on kind of like cross-border mobility. What is our basic understanding? Probably revealing some more data gaps and kind of information gaps that maybe still exist, so we can kind of speak to them all kind of at the same time, just to let you all know what public agencies kind of have in terms of understanding, but also what kind of data gaps and information gaps we're dealing with as well.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thank you, Shelby. I saw your note in the chat. So I appreciate that, because I think, Zach, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's also connecting us to that information that we all need in order to be able to engage in this discussion in a meaningful way. And so certainly want to follow up with you and your team in terms of how we can bring those other folks to the table, and who maybe your relationships and connections are at Caltrans, and who would be the appropriate folks there. And also it'd be great to have the folks who are doing the modeling at SANDAG to share the information that they have so far. So really appreciate it, Zach. Go to Nicolas, and then I'll try to transition to some other folks who haven't had a chance to talk yet.
Thanks, Monique. Yeah, I as we were kind of starting off the conversation, you had kind of challenged us to come up with like actionable things that we can do to address this issue. And from my understanding, a lot of the trucks that are crossing through Otay don't travel very far. From my understanding, there's a big portion of them that just get product from Otay Mesa and Tijuana, and then cross a few miles to deliver goods to warehouses here locally. And so, I think it would be amazing if, of course, we need to gather some information, as Jenny and other folks have already commented on, but like if we can get commitments from those businesses that regularly do that kind of operation, where it's like these, I don't know, travel within a 10-mile radius, and get them to commit to only using electric trucks, I think that would be an amazing and radical step for our SERP here in the border region. I think that'd be really cool.
That's a great idea. I love the thinking behind that. And then that also shows too, right? Something we would need more information on, right? What percentage of those vehicles, so that we can start to see what the actual potential emission reductions could be, right? If that were to be implemented and all. So thanks for sharing that, Nicolas. I want to see if some folks who haven't had a chance to talk just really want to make sure there's space for folks. So I'm gonna call on people. You could say, what? No, I'm listening, or I don't have anything else to add, or you can share a personal experience as well, or a story. But I'm going to just call on a few folks here that I'm seeing on my screen. Diane, you were I think the first one in the meeting. I just want to make space for you if there's anything you'd like to add to this conversation.
Hi, Monique. Thank you for asking. Caltrans does have a project, the new port of entry project on the 111 that will be connecting up to the 905, and that will be rerouting the truck traffic in that direction. And I was thinking, as everyone else was talking, that it would be a good idea to get someone from Caltrans that's involved in that project to come and give a talk here. So to give everyone an update of, how we're going to be handling the port of entry down there. So I will connect with you and set something up so that we can get someone on board with that.
Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate it. I see Irma, your hand is up.
Bueno, sí, sí se puede. Bueno, ¿sí me escucha?
Sí.
Ok. Sí, yo pienso que tenemos que hacer conciencia de que muchas personas que han vivido aquí en San Isidro por más de 30 años, conozco a varias personas del lado de Tijuana. Del lado de Tijuana falleció mi mamá, que nunca había fumado, de enfisema pulmonar. De este lado también conozco como a 3 o 4 personas de la tercera edad que han fallecido de enfisema pulmonar y que han hecho ejercicio casi toda su vida, pero que nunca han fumado. Entonces yo pienso que es hacerles conciencia a todos los que traen los trailers y que duran horas prendidos los trailers allá en Otay, porque apenas acabo de cruzar por allá y como dice la señora María Elena, está larguísima, larguísima la línea para entrar con los trailers, aparte de la de los carros, pero los tienen prendidos, no tienen conciencia de dejarlos apagados. Entonces, hacerles ver y reaccionar que también ellos están en peligro de obtener esa enfermedad, enfisema pulmonar, es en general, todo el mundo nos podemos enfermar, ¿verdad? Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Irma. Before we go to you, Alejandro, I want to see if Mariano wants to add anything to the conversation. Mariano?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Alejandro.
Yeah, thank you. I also see that Chris is not in the call, and I know that he works more with with the trucks in Otay, but he mentioned something that actually like stayed with me for this like couple weeks, is that he was mentioning how yes, a lot of the Otay trucks that cross just go from there to like from Otay to Otay on both sides of the border. But he mentioned how a lot of the trucks that we see pass through San Isidro, or like the north side of San Isidro, are actually going to Long Beach or further north. So I actually don't know like those statistics or whatever. So I think it'd be really good, just emphasizing again how if we knew the truck patterns, we could be able to know exactly how maybe not how big, because we do know that it's a big issue, but maybe thinking now of strategies on how to tackle it if we understand it a little more. So just again echoing more on we should really have that data to be able to inform the CERT.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Alejandro. And I think, Chris definitely is going to be someone where definitely has some of that knowledge, right, in terms of some of those patterns, but we can definitely check in with others as well. I want to, I know that we're staying on this one topic, and this is probably the topic we'll just get to cover this evening. But I think I really love where this conversation went. It went to what are all the gaps and what are all the things that we don't know, right? That we need to know in order to be able to come to that space of imagination, right? That space of community visioning as well. And so I really appreciate that, because there's really clear direction for our team in terms of who we need to go contact to get that information, who we need to bring back, and what's the information that this team here, this group here, needs in order for us to come up with those kind of creative ideas. So I really appreciate that. I want to, before we move on to the next topic on the agenda, I want to make space for a few more people who maybe haven't had a chance to talk yet. And I'm just going to kind of call on people. You don't have to speak if you don't want. You can pass, but just want to provide space. I want to see if Lee, if there's anything you wanted to add to the conversation tonight.
Yeah, I'm listening, but I do have 2 comments. The first one is about the pattern of traffic modeling. So I'm thinking maybe I can bring my colleagues from the Department of Construction and Civil at SDSU to this, this conversation. So maybe they have some modeling results that can share with us about the traffic pattern around the border. And the other thing I want to add, the other thing I want to add is that, the emissions of these the emissions from trucks will be related to the wind direction. You know, because of the wind direction, maybe these truck emissions may just affect a certain of community members or a certain of communities in specific locations. I think that's something we should pay attention in our conversation or in our research to find out which communities are affected by these traffic emissions.
That's a really good point. I really appreciate you uplifting that. So not enough to just about identifying kind of close proximity, but also what other communities may be impacted from these particular trucks as well, based upon like the wind conditions, like you said. Someone just put a note in the chat box about the importance, and I think others have mentioned this. It's not only impacts to community members, but also impacts to the workers as well, who are driving those trucks or who are loading or unloading the trucks as well. So keeping them center in the conversation is also important as well. I want to also call on and see if they have anything to share as well on this topic, but I want to see if Trinidad, was there anything you'd like to share to this topic?
Sí, yo estoy muy también concerniente mucho al problema del drenaje, que eso afecta mucho la parte, más cuando hay el tiempo como del verano, que está bastante caliente, como que esa como que remueve más y es el problema es más grave. Y sí, yo vivo un poco más alejado de la frontera y yo siento que hasta acá siento los olores y yo me imagino como sí también estoy viviendo en San Isidro y ahí lo sentía más, pero siento como que sí es algo más muy relevante, porque si estoy más alejada y todavía lo estoy sintiendo, quiere decir que eso está muy latente ahí, que se debe de hacer algo para pues aliviar un poco esa problemática, ¿no? Porque pareciera que estamos hablando mucho de las emisiones y todo eso nos afecta muchísimo el medio ambiente contaminado, pero también hay otras cosas que también afectan el medio ambiente, que viene siendo esos efectos de olores muy fuertes que sí pueden traer muchos problemas de salud. Gracias.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Trinidad, and especially after all the rains that we've been having, right? That's been something that's people have been experiencing right now. And so I think, I know Shelby put her contact information in the chat box, but I'm going to connect with Shelby after this either later this week or early next week, because maybe the city has like a web page or a fact sheet or something specifically on this issue, because it sounds like it's an issue that's a priority to the community, so that I could email it out to you all as well. So that issue, that there's resources and there's someone to connect with regarding that issue. Before we transition to the next thing on the agenda, I just want to see if Manuela wanted to add anything to this conversation.
No, ahorita todo está bien, gracias.
Okay.
Gracias.
Gracias, Manuela. So I just want to share my appreciation for everyone and the level of engagement that you all shared here. I know we were only able to kind of start to scratch the surface on one of these issues. We want to be able to hopefully be able to do a similar process and maybe have breakout groups the next time we meet or the next few times we meet, so that we can start to maybe develop list of questions or gaps in what we need to know in order to tackle these issues for all these different issues. But I wanted to provide an opportunity for us to go through this process together before we do breakout groups and for each of these different topic areas as well. Before I move on to the next topic, I do see Maricela's hand up. Maricela?
Ay, sí, gracias por cederme el micrófono. Yo quiero comentar acerca de los camiones de carga. La verdad que no había puesto atención mucho en ese punto y ahorita estoy leyendo una información aquí que dice que los camiones de carga son el 70% de la contaminación del aire y que solamente son 2 millones registrados de los camiones de 30 millones de vehículos. Entonces los autobuses son los que están generando la mayor contaminación. No global integrando todos los automóviles, sino que son los 2 millones de autobuses que son los que están generando del 70 al 80% de la contaminación de nuestro aire. Y no solamente generan la contaminación del aire, sino el ruido también es una contaminación. Están generando 2 tipos de contaminación. Y pues una solución sería pues cambiar los vehículos hacia que serían los que no van a estar emitiendo esa contaminación. Sí, el cambio de vehículos eléctricos pues sería una solución, pero de aquí a que eso se lograra, ¿cuánto tiempo va a pasar? Y la contaminación ya la tenemos, las enfermedades ya están surgiendo y son más vulnerables las personas latinas, las que vivimos cerca de la frontera y que también las escuelas están cerca de la frontera y que estamos respirando esa contaminación. Somos los latinos los más vulnerables, pienso yo. Gracias.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Maricela. I think all that you said is right on, and the reason why we're all here today, right? And so I really appreciate you sharing that. What I want to do is I want to pause this discussion, and this certainly is not going to be the end of the discussion around the heavy duty trucks, but just really the beginning of that conversation and the other conversations we'll be having as well. Again, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of homework on my end that I'll have to do between now and the next time we meet. But I really want to be able to connect with the right folks to be able to start to gather that information, or even bring those folks to this table here, right, where they can share directly that information so that we have a foundation for us to explore different strategies as well. So with that, I want to transition, because when I connected with some folks one-on-one, a number of folks expressed an interest in potentially meeting in person and doing more of these conversations in person, and maybe doing some online as well. And so what I did is I told folks, you know what, why don't we ask the CSC members, folks who attend these meetings regularly, like folks in the community as well, to gather their input on that. So I developed a survey, and I just put the link in the chat box, and it's a really, really short survey. Let me share my screen with you all. Let's see. Can you see my screen okay? Can I get a thumbs up?
It's very
Yeah.
tiny.
Is
I
it
can
very
see it, but
tiny?
super, super tiny.
I know. Okay, so let me see if I can
At
make
least
it
for my
bigger.
aging eyes.
Yeah, oops, maybe I made a little too big. Here we go. Whoops. I apologize. And so if you click on that link, hopefully the text isn't too tiny there. Essentially, there's 2 questions. Just saying, this year I'd like to meet, and there's different options: only virtual, mostly virtual via Zoom, meeting in person, once a quarter, alternating every other month. So meeting in person, meeting on Zoom, every other month, or only in person, or there's another way that you'd like to meet? And then if we meet in person, you know, still on the same, you know, day of the month, you know, what time would work best for folks if we were to meet in person? Because I know sometimes getting to a location it takes a little bit more time than just being able to log on your phone as well. So if you have an opportunity to take that survey this evening, or also I'll also be emailing this out to everyone, and then hopefully by the end of next week, I'll have everyone's kind of comments back, and then I'll be able to share out what the group what the group decided in terms of how folks would like to meet, either you know, only in person, only virtual, or some kind of combination of the two. So please do take some time this evening to answer 2 questions for us, and then we'll hope, and I'll also send out this link tomorrow morning to everybody again, in case you don't have time to take the survey this evening. But love to hear from folks and be able to meet you all in the way that you'd like to be met as well. So Maricela, did you have a question? All right, I'm just going to lower Maricela's hand just so that I don't think that there's another question there for right now. Oh, Maricela.
Manita, perdón.
Okay,
Estoy
no
viendo
problem.
la encuesta, perdón. La
Okay, no problem.
Yo ya mandé mi encuesta. Perdón por no levantar la mano.
Perfecto.
Ya mandé mi encuesta. Gracias.
Yeah. So I have a question in the chat box, right? Is it only the members of the committee or everyone that's here today? I would say everyone that's here today. If you know, if you're going to be an active participant in this space, we certainly want to hear your thoughts in terms of what works best for you all as well. And we're going to take a look at all that information and then be able to share that back with you all. Shelby.
Yeah, as I was reminded when we saw your little coworker, I'm just wondering if it may be late to add another question, but if we do transition to in-person after hours, you know, some of us being single parents might need childcare or other accommodations. So just wondering if we can kind of pull the group to see what would be necessary or helpful to make that an easier evening activity.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Shelby. And that's something that we certainly want to keep in mind. And so we could certainly circle back with folks in terms of the appropriate accommodations to make sure folks are able to actively participate. So that's a really good point. We'll do a follow-up in terms of accommodations. Thank you, Shelby. Irma.
Sí, yo diría que si tienen niños, hacernos como voluntariadas, nosotras, la que pueda y la que guste, voluntariarnos y cuidar a los niños, cuidarlos, hacer para que no falten a ninguna junta cuando sea presencial. Entre nosotras mismas, cuidarnos y cuidar a los niños. Turnarnos. Gracias, era todo.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Irma. We definitely want to look into different options and opportunities for that. But I think that what I'm hearing from folks is ensuring that we take those things into account and we provide accommodations in some way. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So with that, I want to actually, if Domingo is still here, want to provide space for public comments, things that weren't part of the agenda. So I'll have Domingo facilitate this part of the conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Monique. So we reserve we like to reserve some time just for members to make comments that we didn't, on items that we perhaps didn't include that you would like to comment on. So this is right now the time. If you have anything to share with the group related to our meeting, but that was not included on the agenda, please feel free to raise your hands and we can go to you for comments. Jenny, I see your hand up.
Hi, I apologize, Monique, if I missed this because the beginning went kind of fast. But I just wanted to bring up that open burning of municipal like plastic bags and plastic waste in Tijuana produces a lot of chemicals that are not, found here. We don't permit burning of plastic items. So this concerning of the open burning in Tijuana, which I think people in the community have noticed plumes of smoke coming from industrial or even informal waste areas. And so the people there also are exposed, have a concern for them. But just to bring up the open burning as an issue, something quite unique to the border community. And I forgive you if it's already mentioned in that slide that you had.
It wasn't, so thank you so much for mentioning that.
Thank you, Jenny. Anybody else that would like to make any comments right now? All right. Seeing none, Monique, I guess I'll turn it back over to you. And also, if at any point you have anything to share that you would like us to share with us, please feel free to reach out to us. You can always email me or Monique at any time. So Monique, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Domingo. Yeah, I wanted to, one of the things that we got in terms of feedback when we were having the one-on-one discussions is the importance of providing time for this group to set the agenda, right? So that we're not just coming to you all with kind of a draft agenda and then you all are responding to that, but how can we set some time and space, the meeting before, to set the agenda for the next meeting that we'll have together. There's a couple of things I wanted to uplift in order to help inform this conversation for agenda setting for our next conversation. One is Kevin, Rebecca, David on our team, and a few others as well have been working on based upon the feedback that you've been sharing with them the past few months, have been working on developing the camp, the community air monitoring plan, and are going to have a draft or some outline of a draft for folks, hopefully by the next conversation. And so what's in the community air protection, or I'm sorry, the community air monitoring plan, is it basically has a description for determining like, hey, why is monitoring important in this community, how the monitoring will take place, and how the data is going to support air pollution reduction. So they'll start to have that plan draft, potentially be able to start to share the whole thing or parts of that with folks next time, if that's something that folks want to start to dive into next time. So I just wanted to share that so that it informs this conversation we'll have as well. And then if we're looking at as well, and I can also send all of this via email to folks, so you have this to help inform conversations moving forward as well. But if we're looking at the different requirements for the SERP, I have highlighted in yellow the things in which we're actively engaging in, the things we're actively doing. So part of this conversation today was helping inform the community profile, right? What are the issues and concerns for the community? What are the community's experiences as well? But it's also helping provide a technical foundation, which is also informing the community air monitoring plan. But we've also started to get into this section here. starting to think about or help to develop the foundation for emission and exposure reduction strategies as well. So we kind of started to have that conversation today by, at least for one of the issues that have been identified, by starting to identify what are the questions or what's the key information that we need as well. So I wanted to share this slide here with folks to help inform this conversation too. But love to hear from you all. And we may not be able to do everything that folks want for the next agenda, but would love to hear from you all. What would be some priorities for the next agenda, whether it be in person or it be online? What would be some priorities for folks? I know it's been a long evening already. Leslie.
Hi. So I think for next meeting, focusing again, like how we started the SERP, like our main focus and what we want to do for the emission reduction would be nice to focus on, in my opinion.
So kind of a similar process, maybe taking the same topic or a different topic and kind of going through that process again.
Yeah, and also like finishing up the other categories we were talking about.
Yeah, sounds good. How about others? I know that in itself is probably a very full agenda, because we could also do breakout rooms too next time, or breakout groups if we're in person as well. Any others?
This is Zach Hernandez again from Sandag.
Zach.
I apologize if I maybe missed this in a previous meeting or presentation, but if possible at a future agenda, maybe having someone from APCD and or CARB kind of walk us through what the Portside community has kind of developed as part of their SERP, like key highlights, so this group can get a sense of, or start getting kind of creative juices flowing about what's possible for the border community, kind of just learn best practices or learn at least what's included in the Portside would be helpful.
Absolutely, I love that, Zach. It's a great idea. And also just thinking too, like again, not all these things might fit in next month's agenda, but we can have a running list of how we want to fill our time together in the next, 3 to 6 months. And so I think that's a really good recommendation as well. Stan.
Yeah, I know a while back we had mentioned about getting somebody from like CBP and other organization or governmental organizations that we pointed out that we think that are problematic in the way they're doing things, just so they are aware of our concerns and see if they're actually trying to do something about it, or they're not even aware that people are not happy with the way things are going. Maybe even council members and things like that, especially in our district. Yeah.
So not so much an agenda item, but making sure that those individuals are at the table so that they're hearing and are part of these conversations as well.
Yeah, or over time we could make it an agenda item so they can present what are they doing about these things.
Sounds good. Yeah. Any other agenda items? Again, it may not be for next month, but it gives us a framework to build out our agenda together in the next 3 to 6 months as well. Also, this is not the only time we'll be able to engage in this conversation in terms of that agenda setting. But I really wanted to be proactive and be mindful of the feedback that we received as well, so that we can collectively build that out, not only for next month, but as we move forward as well. And so I always want to make sure that we have some time at the end of every meeting to engage in this conversation, moving forward, so that we can collectively build that out. I know that there was a number of things that were shared this evening in terms of folks wanting, some modeling information, some truck pattern information and all of that. What I want to do is kind of write out from what I heard, and in this conversation, and also the conversation we were having around what are the kind of needs to kind of build out potential agenda items as we move forward in the next 3 to 6 months, as well, so we can start to get those people on board, get those experts on board and what have you, to be part of this conversation in space. So that kind of provides me some guidance in a to-do list of what you all like to engage in conversation here. Yes, Dan.
On the same issue that I raised earlier, maybe even like the school district, because I know that, CARB and everybody else has like programs for them to replace trucks and stuff. So maybe see if they already have a plan set in motion, or they're planning to apply for these things to replace their school buses, and what are they trying to do to reduce, long lines for parents, also idling for their kids at the schools and things like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dan. That's a great idea. I made sure to take a note of that as well. I want to uplift a couple people who maybe didn't have a chance to chat yet. Elsa, was there anything in particular that you'd like to see on the agenda next month, or just on the agenda sometime within the next 3 to 6 months?
Pues me gustaría, estoy de acuerdo con Leslie también, de seguir lo que se estuvo, porque pues lo que estoy mirando que todo es prioridad de los puntos que estuvimos mirando. Entonces, continuar, me estuvo muy interesante el tema de los camiones, porque también no estoy muy enterada de todo eso, pero es importante informarnos acerca de todo lo que está pasando y toda la contaminación que tenemos aquí en la garita, en las 2 garitas.
Thank you so much for sharing, Elsa. Great. Before we log out this evening, I just want to again provide an opportunity if there's anything else that folks would like to bring up in regards to the agenda before we log off. Awesome, and thank you all for those who had some time to take that survey this evening. I'm already seeing some of the results here. I'll let you all know by the end of next week. I'll give folks about a week to take the survey. I'll send this out via email to those who haven't taken the survey yet tomorrow morning. But I'll let you know by the end of next week what kind of people have shared so far in terms of their preference, in terms of meeting in person or virtual, or some kind of combination of the two. So with that, I just want to share my thanks and gratitude to each of you for a really great conversation. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you all. I think we did a lot this evening together, and that would not have been possible without each of you. So thank you so very much. And we'll keep this process going for sure. Again, if you have any questions, or if something comes to mind after the meeting, I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in the chat box. Feel free to reach out via email at any time. I'm just going to put it here. And again, if you haven't had a one-on-one with me and you would like to, please do reach out. And if there's not a time that you're seeing on there that works for you, let me know. We'll figure it out, and we'll make some time to meet. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch. Take care.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank
Thank
you.
Bye, thanks.
Good night.